Welcome to Electrolysis Unplugged, an after-hours chat beyond the probe with Joannie and Stephanie. We're here to dive deep into the world of electrolysis, education, and all things hair removal.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or just curious about the art of permanent hair removal, we've got the insights, tips, and fun stories to keep you plugged in.
So grab your tools, take a seat, and let's get into it. This is Electrolysis Unplugged, brought to you by the Electrology Education Coalition. So tonight we have Eileen here. And Eileen, do you want me to do a formal introduction or would you like to introduce yourself? Because I can totally pull up what I have written online.
Long. I don't know. I'm kind of.
So
whatever you want to do is fine.
We'll do it this way. Okay. So Eileen and I met, I would say close to, because I got my certification in 2011 and I became a board member, I think in 2013, because I had just had my son. And I think I met you in Maryland in 2013 when I was sitting at my first board meeting being voted in as delegate at large. And you and Deb took me under your wings at that meeting because I was just like this late 20s new mom trying to figure out Baltimore and not be stolen. And you guys were really hospitable at that time, but also you and I had a lot in common being raised in the industry, just like Joannie as well. And so I've always found that it's very fun to talk to you, but also like I enjoy your friendship. So like, I really appreciate you being on here tonight. I am totally going to play a game of like questions with you. But let's start off with like, how long have you been in practice as a starting point, and how long has the school been open?
Okay. I actually joined my mom in the practice in 1993, a long time ago. And I got my CPE, I want to say in 96 or 97. I have been pretty much working full time since then. The only time I didn't work full time was when my son was born. He is 23 now. So, I've been zapping for a long time. I started out primarily as a blend operator and multiple needle. And then as epilators changed, I began to do more thermolysis. And now I just kind of go back and forth depending on the person and the needs.
I love that.
I did get my bachelor's during COVID. I stopped going to college in the late 80s, and my aunt and uncle had bought a sailboat charter business in Hawaii. Stephanie, you may not know this. And they asked me to come and help them run it. I was like, well, yeah. So I was through from college. I went to Hawaii for 6 months. And when I came back, my parents had bought a mailboxes, et cetera, franchise, which is now the UPS store. So I ran that for a while. And then my dad said, hey, your mom really needs help in the office. You really should, think about that. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Work with mom. I don't know.
That's so fun.
So that is how I got to electrolysis. I did not have hair. My mom did my eyebrows when I was 12, when she was learning to become an electrologist. She had hair. And it's interesting. I overheard her do a consultation one time recently in the office. And she said to whoever she was talking to after the birth of my second child, that would be my sister. She said, I had a full man's beard. And I went to an electrologist who happened to be Debbie Larson's mom.
Stop.
Ruth Allen. And Debbie and my mom went to electrolysis school together a long time ago, almost 50 years ago. My mom still practices full time.
Full time?
I am 58. You can do some math to figure out how old she might be.
Wow.
But anyway, so that's how I got to electrolysis. And then when the pandemic hit, I was sitting home, not making any money, thinking, how am I going to, support my kid who is now in his first year at an out-of-state college and myself. My husband died 6 years ago, so it's just me with the income. Anyway, so I started the process checking off the things I thought I needed to do for myself and for our profession in Maryland, because our members were getting older, they were retiring. We were not getting any new members in. So I started to go to school to get the bachelor's, and then the process to become an instructor, which took a while because I had to bring my education up to the current Maryland standards. When I got my license, the standards were for 320 hours, and now the standards are at 600 hours. So I had to increase my education to get my instructor's license.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of that as well, going through all the little steps because I came from an unlicensed state. I moved to an unlicensed state, but I work with licensed electrologists with my reciprocity, and all the extra steps and extra education that I do behind the scenes, like just like literally, this is why I say like we are very similar individuals. It's a lot, but it's what you have to do for your for like your needs, your soul, how to
Right.
feed that side of things.
Right.
That is, I think I'm still pretty blown away that your mom is still practicing full time. I think to like I've been a practitioner for 20 years in electrology, 21 years in laser. And I unfortunately had some hand stuff happen during COVID times. And I just was like overworking them and had to like pull back a bit from like full-time practice and lean more into the education side. And I miss that behind the scenes, but I also love education. So it's like I'm still getting to feed both sides of it. But it was one of those things like just to think of, I mean, how I'm not even doing that math. Like she's been in practice now about
It's like 48 or 49 years.
that's
48,
absolutely
48 years. Yeah. I think
that's
yeah.
my mother just celebrated her 82, so 42nd year in practice. And it's just like when you see that, it's just for myself and for her, we were 17 when we started as practitioners. And like I just think about like 17-year-old Stephanie, if you were to tell her what she's doing today, she would think that you were on something. Like it's just it's unusual. But I'm sure just like you, it's like you can't imagine it any other way. And that passion that you talk about, like seeing our profession need it. Like Giovanni and I, we use this a lot, if not us, then who kind of thing. Because if we're not encouraging this, and I see like there's other educators on the call as well. And it's like I see what we're doing to push forward those standards because we've seen what it can do. Like you, I was 12 years old when I had my electrolysis on my upper lip. The rest of it, I was a hairy kid. So the rest of it kind of came through my later teen years, just because you guys all know teenagers don't sit on the table as well as adults do. Yeah. So I had to wait until I had a little bit more like gumption behind me to like really sit through what I needed. So that's a definite reality. You're still actively on the board of directors for your state?
Yes.
What is your current position?
So I've been the president of the Maryland Association of Professional Electrologists almost, well, at the end of this year, it'll be four full years. So, wait, hold on. A long time. I feel like I've been, I've served in some capacity for MAPE for the last 18 years.
Wow.
In the last 13, I think that meeting where you got elected delegate at large, that was either my first year or my second year as a delegate. So I'm coming. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, because I was VP before. So I think this is my 12th year coming up on the as a delegate for the American Electrology Association.
That's really cool. I mean, like that's a lot. That volunteer work should not go unnoticed, for lack of a better way, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to electrology education, infection prevention, bylaws, policies and procedures, testing development, education development. I mean, like we're always kind of like percolating on something, and that's pretty amazing.
Fun fact, you mentioned infection prevention. My mom in 1987 with another woman from Maryland, wrote the first infection control standards for our state, which were then adopted by the AEA, and they've morphed
That
into
is,
what we have now.
that is cool.
Anyway.
That's a little ribbon in your mom's or feather in your mom's cap, ribbon on her. That's really amazing. Okay, so we're gonna play a game of not 20 questions. We're gonna play a game of however many questions we can get out of her, okay, in this time frame. So obviously we already talked about like what drew you into the field in that space. But in that same thought of like what drew you into the field, let's talk about like how do you manage to stay on top of your education, latest techniques, technology, and changes there?
Well, I love to learn. I mean, clearly, if I went back to get my bachelor's degree after a 37.5 year absence in college, I kind of like to learn. So I go to as many continuing education classes that I can. You know, as and also as a CPE, I need to get 75 hours in a 5 year period.
Right.
So, but I like to learn. I like to, um, you know, the Zooms are great because I don't have to leave my living room if I don't want to.
Mhm.
Uh, but to me, there's nothing like the in person being in a room with my colleagues and
Yes.
talking to them and saying, "Hey, da 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 da," or "What do you think about this?" or "Why don't we have any ballet pros?" You know,
Oh,
I mean,
right.
um, I, you know, the face to face with the colleagues is really important. And I think when I first started doing electrolysis, there was a lot of, I must say the word competition was very prevalent in our field. Like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
everybody was afraid of everybody. But I hope that we, at least in Maryland with MAPE, that we have created an environment where we don't do that. We
Yeah.
are colleagues. We are not competitors.
Yeah.
Um, because we all want to help our clients. And if so, you know, there's client jumping. I mean, it
Mhm.
happens. And if you're somebody that has clients that jump ship, well, then maybe you need to figure out why. And that
Mhm.
comes back to education. So,
Yes.
anyway,
Um, that when you're talking about, so one of the things that um, I talk to my students about is like competition. Okay. And when I say competition, guys, just understand that like, I literally do not look at other electrologists as competition. I look at you guys as all allies because I cannot do everything. And I need someone who can, right?
mm,
Like I need people who can. But competition drives industry. And one of the big things that we had when the exodus happened with like laser and electrolysis split, and like you had people like our family where we're not necessarily in the same circles in that space in that time. What we faced was nobody knew what other people were doing. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody was familial. There was all these like weird bad blood moments with people because so and so talked to so and so, and it became hard to connect. And I really see this changing with the um, this generation of electrologists that are like, hey, I see something that you're doing that I can't do or I don't have the capacity to do. I'm going to send people over your way, and the vice versa. And people are cross referring more. They are connecting more with their colleagues. They are, okay, y'all, I know that I'm silly on TikTok and on Instagram, that kind of stuff, but I get so hyped to see you all posting, celebrating your clients before and after. I mean, seeing our friends, the colleagues, speak in the comment section, elevating each other is infectious in a beautiful way. Something that we don't want to have prevention on, right?
right.
It's really cool. And I believe that I don't want to call it competition, but like colleagues, a workforce will drive our industry back up. And we're seeing that growth happen right now at an exponential rate. So I think that's pretty amazing. Okay, so um, what are some of the common mistakes that you see new electrologists that make, and what advice would you, what advice would you give them to help avoid it?
I think a big one is underestimating how long the process is. Um, if they're not looking at the entire health history, and I think that that kind of comes with a practiced eye. You really have to ask questions. Your health history has to be pretty in depth in order for you to get all the clues, um, and really find out, well, what are you doing? Are you tweezing? How
Yeah.
often are you tweezing? And I I have one of my students, super sweet. She's going to go into work with her mom, but she had a lot of laser before she had some electrolysis, and she, she just had a hard time telling people it was going to take as long as it was because I think she was afraid. And I said,
Mhm.
you can't do that because they're going to come in 6 months and say, I thought you said this was going to be finished by now. And so they have to get over the fear of the process.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's one. Um, and two, I see sometimes too shallow insertion because they're afraid to go too deep into the follicle.
They're
Um,
afraid to hurt them and in turn hurt them.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, or they're not using enough current, or they're using the wrong size probe.
Mhm.
And that's all something that you have to go, if they go too fast, they can't figure out what the cues are that they're seeing. So slow is better at the beginning, to figure that kind of stuff out.
That's it's interesting that you say that. So when I start off a student, um, we always start off with single needle galvanic as a starting point. Um, because one, it's the original, right? And then two, it's slow. And it's slow in a good way. It will give you what you need, which is accuracy to get in that space, to get used to putting a filament into someone's follicle and get past those nervous moments. And it ends up with less surface trauma because it's galvanic current, not necessarily heat based current. And so you have like a safety net in that space
Right. Mm-hmm.
and the time it takes because a lot of people think it's all about like how much hair can I get out and how long,
Right.
how fast can I go, and you're 1000% on point when you said about like under quoting. The time is the time. It
Mhm.
takes what it's going to take, and just because we say less, all it's going to do at that point as a new technician, if you're like, oh, I think I can get this done in 6 months, well, what ends up happening is when you don't do that, it sends a catalyst not only through your own practice, but through the field of not understanding what it takes to get this done. And so, like, take that time, get to know your insertions when you get in there, because it's going to give you the opportunity as you move into faster modalities, um, that ability to kind of cruise along to pick out the modalities that fit best. One of the things that she had said at the start of that was like, she was a blend operator, multi-needle operator. So she's like me, where we came in, I came in Claire Blend and Gentronics were my first machines that I worked with. And I still have a Gentronics at the school for a multi-needle. And I definitely would say that like I did not really get to know thermolysis well until I got a Appalus DXL. And I was really nervous about it because I just, even though I had been doing some flash thermolysis within my Gentronics, it was such a small amount because I was really relying on one modality, that I don't feel like I branched out as a technician until I started critically thinking about each individual case and how I want to play with the currents in that space in that day. And it sounds like you kind of have the same approach in that space. Is like all those little nuanced things that you took in during that intake with your client. turns into that Sherlock Holmes moment of like, okay, now what do I do? And that's going to change a lot. Like it's going to change in a treatment. It could change like in a treatment, like by area, by moisture gradient, that kind of stuff, and what you need to do. In that same thought, when it comes to your consultation, what would you say is like, how do you approach your client's consultation to ensure that their needs are met, and that you are providing them the information to make them an informed consumer, so that they can make informed choices in regards to the overall integrity of their skin and their hair in the long run?
I do a lot of legwork in the emails. Almost all of our new clients now come through our website referrals, and I kind of write a book. Although I don't write it all at one time. I there's a lot of back and forth because I've found that if I write too long, that just like, okay, that turns people their brains off and they're like, oh my God, I can't do this. Um, but I will ask a lot of questions back and forth, um, to kind of get the groundwork laid before they come in. And what we've also been doing this is at the school. I just started doing this. Our health assessment for our models at the school is online, and we have the people then email it to us, and then we can see what their needs are before they actually walk in the door, and I can assign them with the appropriate student. Because I have one student for religious reasons that doesn't work on any men.
Okay.
And, Debbie Smith fills calls or emails, and we email back, and then when, if Debbie walks in and Debbie is a trans female, there's a problem for that particular student. So,
Right.
we have learned to pivot quickly
Yeah.
in those kind of situations. But that's kind of one reason why, at least at the school, I have them fill out the health assessment, and then bring it in. But for my office, I try to get as much information as possible in email before they even walk in the door.
Yeah.
So, we have a pretty extensive health assessment. And then I just ask, it has a list, where they're supposed to list their medicines. And if I don't know what it is, I ask them what it is. Or if they list 4 medicines, and we have a line that says, are you currently being treated by a doctor? But they say no. And then there's 4 clearly prescribed medications. Like, okay, so what is this for? So you are being seen by a doctor. So that kind of helps. And then figuring out, okay, so you pluck, once a week for the last 15 years. You plucked once a week for the last 15 years. You got a face full of hair. Then you probably have about 6 or 8 times as much hair as you think you do. And we got to let it go. You can't do that anymore. And so we tell them it's going to probably get worse before it gets better.
That expectation of that statement is like so necessary. Because when you stop and that you take off that Band-Aid, that time to get yourself to get a real understanding of what's going on is painful. I call that the ugly duckling stage of electrolysis, because you're about to find out just how bad that plumage looks. We gotta wait for that to turn into the swan song later on. So like it is a very important part.
Yeah.
Do you, with your intake forms, do you do like long format charting? Are you just kind of copy pasting it over into their notes? Do you find
Yeah, I have not transitioned to the electronic records yet. So it is all paper right now. And but you asked me where I see the future is, and I see the future is we all got to learn how to do that. Because we're going to drown in paper. I 31 years worth of paper for me and 48 or 49 years worth of paper for my mom. Oh my God. Well, obviously we just throw some stuff out after a while, but still it's a lot of paper when you are, when you got a full book 5-6 days a week. So, um, I see that that's the future and I've got to transition it. So, but I just I write a lot on the form, on the back of the form. And the only ones I've really seen are the ones from AEA, the patient record cards where
Mhm.
you a little teeny weeny line. Well,
Yes.
that's not that's not enough space. I could maybe use like 4 or 5 on the whole page.
Yeah.
Um, it's just not enough space. There's not enough to take notes on what the skin looks like before or after. Um, it's just so I've created my own. Um, and we've adopted it at the school, and I'm now using it in the office as well. So,
That's at the school we utilize Fresha for booking because it's free to have as many providers as you want on there. So it's less of an expense for the school on
mhm,
that side. And then I have um my practice fusion that I use with my medical director. And I will say that the intake forms on there, while very basic, being digital is so nice.
mm,
And I will be I'm in the process of reorganizing our intake forms for the students because we're a teaching clinic. So like we're seeing a live client load
mhm,
as well. And so it's one of those things that they're having to chart in 2 places. They have to chart a physical paper chart. So they get used to just that long format and then dictation into their device of the what all the things that they talked about on their paper chart gets
mhm,
moved over into the other one. And I think that it's really important as soon as you can in your practice to get onto the digital side of things because it is hard to transition out from paper to digital, especially if you are creating like a batch of files that you will have to keep for a certain period of time based on your state standards. And so if you're going to make that transition, you have to have a place to store your paper files during that transition.
mhm,
Uh, but I am so glad we went digital during COVID. We went to use Vigaro in my parents' practice. And it was a game changer for a couple different reasons. The biggest one being that when you have like intern high schoolers and that stuff working for you, sometimes stuff doesn't get filed correctly,
yeah,
which was a game of like find a chart.
mm,
And that's pretty painful. So we never are missing a chart unless somebody didn't chart it, right?
right.
Which was like a big thing. And then just keeping it up to date. And I think that you'll enjoy this going forward, but like once a year, we can send out a mass new intake form and have them all fill it out. Just like when you go to your annual visits for your doctors, I can do the same thing and push it to the patients. And it keeps them up to date because I know that you know this, but like how often it wasn't on their intake, it's not in their notes, but they just recently did something with their doctor and like didn't even think to tell you about it. Oh, I just
Right.
went on testosterone pellets, or
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, like great.
We had somebody at the school that had a nose job 2
Oh,
weeks, and she
2 weeks.
comes and she says she wants all this little and I said, "Well, what is that?" And she said, "Oh, I just had my nose done." I'm like, "Oh, we can't touch you." 2 weeks. I was like, "Oh my god."
Just because you can go back to work does not mean you should be smacking yourself in the nose, right? I'm like, we have to get up in there and stretch and not be timid about it. Oh my gosh, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
This is kind of a weird, creepy moment, but my mom years ago had someone that had a facelift and she was removing the hairs that had curved around the edge. There was like a
Mm.
long hair in this area and she kind of like pulled out the ingrown and it happened to be one of their stitches and it hadn't fully healed.
Oh
And
my
the ear was
god.
like, um, and my mom's like, and I mean, the person was fine. They were actually fully healed. It had just never, um,
Never
like,
got rid of itself,
yeah, yeah.
dissolved or whatever.
It never bound to the side of the face. It kind of they had more of a floppy lobe on that side.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
but I mean, could you imagine you're just like working on someone's ear and you're like unraveling their facelift? that they just paid a few $1,000s for. That sounds hideous. And wait, hold on, I have to see what Anita's dropping us a little comment here. And they think they can do it because they feel numb. They think that's going to be painless treatment. Yeah. Painless. The famous words of electrolysis. Is it? I'm like, not so much. So, okay. So consultations. Let's think about this. So how do you feel that you can maintain and build strong relationships with your clients? That still keep it professional, but still keep it friendly, but professional, and you're setting boundaries where you need to set them.
So I feel sometimes I will try to find something in common with the patient, um, but without, being too prying or without giving out too much information. Um, you know, they don't all need to know that my husband died 6 years ago, unless it comes up. But that's, if they see a picture of my son, oh, is that your son? Yada, yada, yada. I'm good with that. Or if I see maybe on their form, oh, they live in my neighborhood. I'm like, oh, I don't, hey, you live in my neighborhood. But I listen a lot. I let them talk because sometimes they just unload stuff. Facial hair, as you all know, it's it's a big problem for women. And now that with the trans community, I mean, it weighs on them, and to know that they can tell us, and it's like it's nothing we haven't seen before. You just have to listen sometimes. And I do a lot of repeating. Like I try, very hard not to judge. I say, oh, I hear you are, really uncomfortable about how that hair makes you feel. So let's try to get rid of this, and here's what we're going to do. But you do also have to kind of reinforce the that initial consultation. Every couple months, you have to kind of go over it with them again because they forget. Even though they know you're helping them, they forget. So you do have to kind of remind them what you said 2 months ago. But I do a lot of listening. Just try to be an ear, a friendly person that they can tell stuff to. And I say, I don't charge extra for that. So, no, I do have a psychology degree. I don't charge extra for it.
You're like, I'm not double billing. But that's the thing is okay. So so Michaela commented, there's been multiple questions about this recently on the Facebook groups. And it's a great question. So the reason I did this is the other day I did an Instagram live because I had a lot of people inquiring. And then I saw that online one about boundary setting. And I was 17 when I started this. I was an open book that did not need to be talked about. Okay. But you live and you learn, right? And so we were just before coming into this chat, just so everybody knows, my Zaplings are on either side of me right now that are in the class. Y'all can't see. There's hands. Okay. So Zapling number one on this side. This is Laura. She's like, I forgot how she said it. She's like, gosh, you just get along with everybody. And there is a true statement. I do like people, and I do like to hear your story. Okay. When it comes to boundary setting, it took me some hard work to start setting those for myself, to protect my peace, to protect my patient's peace, because I was noticing sometimes those questions that you might think are pretty benign, like when you were saying, like, not everybody needs to know about Cliff, right? And so when we think about this, like, if they're bugging you about it all the time, you don't get to like sit in your peace during your treatment, and vice versa. So if you're always prying at the stuff that hurts them, while you're doing a service that physically hurts them, it's not a cohesive and safe space. And it's hard because I do want to hold space for people as much as possible, but I also have to hold space for myself, right? And you can't pour from an empty cup. Okay. And so I had to know what I could take in, and then what, as a technician, what I was just not equipped to help them with. I
Right.
had to be like, you know what, that is actually completely outside my scope of practice.
Yeah.
However, I do have like resources for you. And I care enough about you that I'm going to give you all these resources, and I'll check back in later on to see how you're doing. But I can't hold, and some of the stuff that people unload, especially like women going through divorces, or people who are they might have lost somebody recently, or they might have a kid who's not talking to them, right? And it could be as easy as like, oh, how'd it go at Christmas? And it's like that person's holiday was not joyful for them. And
Right.
so now I've got a person crying on the table,
Yeah.
and me going like, maybe I want to cry because I just made this person cry. I'm like, and I'm a sympathy crier. But like, it's, you have to be able to establish and say like, there are certain things I simply can't hold.
Mhm.
And a lot of them have to do with some of the heavier weights. And we joke on like trauma dumping, like trauma dumping's the thing, right? And so if somebody's doing that to you, it's like, either turn your ears off if it's bothering you and you don't know what to say. Turn your
Mhm.
ears on if it's something that you need to engage with because you feel like you need to connect with them in that space. Or turn your voice on and say, hey, this is not something I'm equipped to do. Here is my resource for you.
Right. Right. And it's interesting you talk about the trauma dumping.
Mhm.
Um, I did have years ago, my first child was a stillborn baby,
Mm.
and um, I I did a lot of that trauma dumping on people.
Yeah.
But part of it was for me was to get, it was cathartic for me to get that out.
Yeah.
But I see where now when that starts to happen, like I can recognize it.
Yeah.
And I just do the head nodding, and I was like, "Well, do you have somebody that you can talk with like professionally?" You
Mm.
know, because this is deep, and I feel like you might need somebody better equipped to handle this conversation than me.
And
Um,
that's like with you sharing this, like especially like you're sharing this with the group. And the fact is like um it's enough to share it and say that it exists. And if you needed more support, then say I need more support in those
right.
spaces. But if it's just like I need to say this because it's part of my journey. And like, I mean, I've known you now long enough. I've known these things about you, and they are um parts of your life that are very important. And when they're to be shared by you
Right.
and you alone.
Right.
And I mean, like when I was 17, I was like, I was, struggling with things myself. And I talk to people because I do advocacy for PCOS and disordered eating, because I myself had to, like struggled with disordered eating and have it under control. But like, those are things that like I'm willing to share with people, my PCOS journey, and my struggle with conceiving, and my struggle with disordered eating, because they are things that create the woman I am right now, but not in ways to be like, woe is me. It's like,
Right.
hey, we go through things, and like this is our connection point.
Mhm.
There's times where if it's too heavy, it's okay to say to somebody, it's too heavy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because you got to get through your day. Like, I mean, and it's not that you don't care. It's
Right.
that you care so much that you physically can't.
Right.
Uh, so I,
Only
uh,
one time in my career was I ever concerned about. I had one patient that I thought was suicidal, uh,
mm,
and that scared the crap out of me. Her daughter was also a patient of mine. This was like years ago,
mm,
um, before I was worried about HIPAA. And I called her and I said, "Look, I just want you to go check on your mom."
mm,
It was all okay, but
right.
she scared me.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, I just lost a patient to suicide.
mm,
And it's one of those things that um, you think that you're there enough. And I've lost patients before to it. And simply due to the high number of high um like patients that I have seen over the years, and like the higher risk spaces that they've been in. It was a higher number than what probably most electrologists go through. And one of my students happened to be the person that was regularly working with her. And it was just like, it was just too much. And I was like, you know what? It is completely okay to say that it's too much. And you take all the time you need, because it's not easy. Like, those are things. And we do connect with our patients so much. Every person that comes into this office, not only am I thankful between the students, between the models, between patients, for them choosing like our spaces. But it's those, I really truly feel as though those connections is what makes humanity humanity. Like, it's pretty amazing stuff to me. Okay, off of the heavy stuff for right now. We can get heavy later. Would you say that you have something that's particularly rewarding in your career as an electrologist that you kind of keep close to your heart whenever you think about it, that makes you kind of like get up and be like, I'm going to go do this again tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I think it's just the helping people feel better about themselves. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, we can make a big impact in how people see themselves, not just on the inside, but on the outside.
Yeah.
And that makes the inside feel better when the outside feels better.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's the bottom line.
I joke, but it's a joke. Okay. I say that we save the world one hair follicle at a time. Okay. And that's what we do. But we're like, a lot of times we are kind of that one, we're able to see the beauty within that person far sooner than they can see it within themselves. And we're just unveiling the follicular veil of excess hair. And so it helps them kind of like finally get to see who we see in those stories that they tell us. So I agree that that's a pretty cool thing.
Today, we want to shine some light on some of our amazing partners who are helping shape the future of electrology education, services, distribution, and so much more. We're thrilled to have such amazing partners and supporters. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned professional, these vendors and schools have what you need to succeed. The North American distributor of ballet needles and Instantronics is none other than Synoptic Products. Every electrologist knows that precision matters. Ballet needles are designed for just that, offering unparalleled accuracy and comfort for both the practitioner and the patient. Instantronics is known for the smoothest hair removal experience, and distributors who are enthusiastically moving towards innovative experiences. With their new ownership under Dr. Sarah Paisner, Instantronics, formerly known as Instantron, is making strides towards innovative experiences in electrology epilators. You can ensure that your practice not only remains clean, safe, and compliant, but on the leading edge of technology and innovation. A must-have for every electrology clinic. Visit synopticproducts.com to learn more.
Hello, electrologists. It's Hazel Bloom with Kiwi Fruit Coaching here. Now, I know some of you are looking down the barrel of starting your own businesses, and that's a nerve-wracking time in anyone's life. So if you need any support or encouragement, or someone to bounce ideas off of, or someone to help you achieve those goals, please feel free to get in touch with me. My website is kiwifruitcoaching.com, or you can email me directly, hazel@kiwifruitcoaching.com.
Heading to the Golden State, California Electrology Academy offers an immersive learning experience that prepares students for national certification, as well as many states with reciprocity to California's licensing exams. Led by Joannie and Joanne Gonella, they bring decades of quality services and education. CEA offers flexible schedules, open enrollment, and a supportive learning environment, making them a perfect place to start your electrology journey. Be sure to check them out for cutting-edge education right in sunny Southern California. And visit electrologyacademy.com. That's electrologyacademy.com. Thanks for tuning in to Electrolysis Unplugged. Be sure to check out our amazing sponsors for the best in electrology tools, training, technology, and so much more. Now, back to the show.
How do you handle difficult or complex patients or issues in your practice? Like what, let's go with patients first. So like, how do you usually navigate dealing with the quote unquote Karen, or person that has abrasive tendencies, but still has an unwanted hair problem? And we'll start there.
Well, this goes back to the consultation and writing everything down.
Mhm.
I try to write as much stuff as possible down, what they said. And then now that I right before COVID, January 1, 2019, I went electronic scheduling. So I
Mm.
had GenBook. GenBook got bought out by Booksy. I
Okay.
want to change to Vagaro, but oh my gosh, it's a daunting task. So
Mm.
right now I'm still at Booksy. But I can click on their name and I can say, okay, you were here. Oh, you canceled there. You canceled there. You canceled there. But then you were here and then you canceled. So we're not really where we thought you were going to be initially because you canceled all these appointments.
Mhm.
And that that aspect of my practice has it's just it's the backup, you know. It's the proof. It's why, if they don't think it's working, well then you can go back to your records. And I always tell them, I say, well look, if I feel like you're not making progress in 4 to 6 months,
Mhm.
we're going to do something different. Maybe even sooner than that. We're going to try a different modality. You're going to go maybe get some blood work done. We're going to do something different. 4 to 6 months. If we're not seeing noticeable difference, then something has to change. So
Mhm.
I go back to that a lot as well.
I
And
currently have a patient like that will not get blood work. They came in today, and she's got PCOS, severe hirsutism. And for me, I look at her and I'm like, labs, 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 because I am chasing aggressive androgen-based growth. We're talking like a hirsute case, like 4 or 5. Okay, like we are hard on the hair, and she just won't do it. It's just enough to get her into electrolysis share. So she has to understand that that's like going to take longer.
right.
Beauty is she's not a Karen, so like
Yeah.
that's nice. But like you, I love that. I, for lack of a better way to say it, like that come to Jesus moment where you're like, this is your treatment plan that
Mhm.
I gave you, and these are all the ones that you decided to remove from that treatment plan. Okay. And I gave this to you as your homework and classwork. Show up, turn it in. I need those follicles. Because if you're not showing up for hair removal, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. It was getting rid of that paper appointment book was the most freeing experience of my entire 31-year career.
Oh, yeah. You're like, I am never buying another paper planner ever again.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for difficult people, I mean, I guess I've had some, um, and maybe I'm just a little too busy, or maybe I click the button that says they can't book online unless they call me, you know?
Yeah. I
Maybe,
am unavailable for people who do not want to be nice to me and my schedule.
yeah.
Because I will be nice to anybody. I don't care what walk of life, color, creed. I don't care, young, old, rich, poor, don't care.
No.
But you need to be a kind person in this office. We respect our people. So you don't get to be in the schedule when respect doesn't happen.
Mhm.
So I don't need to be abused by you. Like, that's a reality. What about in your practice? Do you find that there's any like difficult, sorry, I'm like rolling away. There's any difficult things that you are trying to adjust even all these years into practicing electrolysis?
Well, I do periodically get people that have had bad laser experience, or they think they've had bad electrolysis and maybe they just didn't wait long enough.
Mhm.
Um, and I never want to say, okay, you had bad electrolysis, because I
Mhm.
wasn't there. I
Right.
wasn't I wasn't in the room. I wasn't the electrologist. you don't really know what that patient did when they walked out the door.
Mhm.
No, you can't really assume that.
Yeah.
So I try not to say anything negative about any colleagues.
Mm.
Although one time I had a woman come in who had bloody scabs on her upper lip. I mean, they were big bloody scabs. And I was like, ooh.
Mm.
And I know she saw my face because I said, okay, so that's not a normal reaction.
Mm.
And I feel like you might need to go get a dermatologist to check that out or somebody to check that out to make sure you're okay before anybody else does anything to you. And I said, I don't really want to know where you came from. But that is not a normal skin reaction from electrolysis. But I mean, they were like not quite the size of a pencil eraser head, but they were pretty dang close. Like it was
That's
bad, 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 bad.
that breaks my heart because I mean that is an issue. And like it's not to say that there is no national standards for electrology education. Okay.
Right.
Which means that, I mean, anybody in unlicensed states, like where I'm at, right, can call themselves an electrologist and there's nothing stopping them from that. Okay. There's no one stopping them from buying machines on eBay. Even you guys buy machines on there, or on Electrolysis Information Worldwide, where like you have the consumer side of things. You just don't know what you're getting in those spaces. But you do know you're getting a great deal, right? And so I try to remember that. I also try to remember that, and in my practice, this was a very hard one for me, but my spouse was like, this is the way we're doing it. Cause I work with my spouse. And so, Mike is like, I need documentation of the things that I've said to some of these patients that are problematic, because they will, fib, on what was said during those calls. And it's sometimes it's just like trying to work the schedule so they can get something that they really wanted, but they were hoping that talking from one person, the other person is going to change that. They forget when, you're married to that person. There's a little bit more intel that is shared, person to person. But it's a struggle to keep that honesty there. And so as someone that is dual trained with laser and electrolysis, when I have somebody that comes in with like paradoxical hypertrichosis, I think about the patients that have tried to push me, even when I've told them as a laser technician, you're not a laser candidate. And they're like, can we just try? I know it could stimulate growth. I know it can stimulate growth, but can we just try it? Right. And they're going to be very persistent. But if you're a new enough technician and your boss, for example, in a laser clinic, your boss is saying, no, you're going to laser them, even if it goes against what you know is correct, you have a dilemma, right? The dilemma is either follow what the boss wants, okay, or follow what the patient needs, right?
Yep.
Or what they want. And sometimes they're not honest about it. And they're like, oh, this happened to me. I can't believe it happened to me. And I'll see them on there and I'm like, you were like the same person asking for this session that was not the right one for you. So I went in those cases, I would have them sign off. Scarring cases, when I've seen, and I know that you've seen this as well, when they come in, like the one with the eraser size scars, we're dealing with a case here in Washington where somebody had third degree burns after electrolysis. Okay, substantial. And they just thought that that's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to have weepy skin. You were supposed to have these massive scabs. And I'm like, solidly no. But I have to go and do the education for them that they didn't necessarily have it initially, so that they can understand what to expect and how to treat that and to stop doing what has caused that. Don't go to a space that will not modify when something has gone so drastically wrong. And that doesn't mean that I'm like you, I don't want to talk negatively about our community because I think that it's a lack of education. I don't think it's malice done for the sake of being a mean electrologist. I think it is lack of education.
I agree. I think in this particular person's case, it was somebody needed to try a different modality rather than cranking it up,
Oh
which
yeah.
is exactly what happened, you know.
Oh yeah.
Um, But anyway, she never came back.
Poor
But
thing.
I know. I hope she healed okay.
Yeah. Some of the ones I was actually really proud of, I don't know if you guys saw this on the consumer page, but somebody had bought an electrolysis machine, I believe a transgender woman, because I saw it was facial work. And they ended up blasting their upper lip, working on themselves.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those moments, it broke my heart because she was so honest in saying, like, I know I should not have done this. Now what? Right. But to think that someone guided her to that space of like, oh yeah, it's so easy. You can do this in your sleep. And it's like there's a little bit more to it. And we, sometimes I'll hear that like from some of the people out here that didn't necessarily side share, they bought a machine and then they're like calling me for probes and that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, it's so easy. I tell people all the time, anybody could do electrolysis. And I was like, and maybe I just have high expectations. I don't feel that it is that easy of a career. I think it's highly technical. I think it's highly scientific. And I think that a lot weighs in on that. And I'm just like, oh, good. To go over those. I know that we're nearing the end, and we already talked about the future of electrolysis and where you see like digital age. Is there anything that you want to bestow upon the Mentorship Hour attendees tonight and the ones that listen later that you feel like is that little nugget that you tell your students for encouragement?
I usually say I have to tell them, remind them a lot that they are, and this is something that Joanne said to me when I went out to California Electrology Academy. She said, remember, well, I can't do the French accent, but she said, you are not a statue and neither is your patient. So, don't be afraid to move them around. And if it doesn't work, try a different position. I think we get so worried about like not putting pressure on them or getting them in a funky position. Well, if they're not in a position for you to be able to do the work, your insertion's not going to be accurate. Your body is not going to be happy with you in the long run. I really feel like you can't learn enough about positioning. And being willing to move your patient around and move yourself around to get the right spot.
That's so incredibly important. We aren't statues. I always say presets aren't people. Okay. Well, you can work in a preset. At the end of the day, you need to know what that preset's doing. Michaela, she works in Massachusetts, right? I'm like, my brain's like, so she's an educator out there and it's 1,100 hours where she's at, and she'll even see a substantial difference. Thank you. Sorry. My brain was like, MA, ma. But like you see differences there. And okay, so I allow like after 320 hours between the theory and the practical first 120 hours, that is just barely scratching the surface so that you can get enough to be certified in an unlicensed state. Okay. That is not enough to feel confident, big picture in your practice without ever having another question. And if you never have another question, you have to ask yourself, do you really know what you're doing? Because you should always have questions. Sometimes you guys say stuff and I'm just like, ooh, it like just makes my brain, so the same thing. It's like if I could have somebody for 1,100 hours of electrology education, like that'd be so great. Anita's saying 4 to 5 days to learn electrolysis in some of the UK courses. And then some of them are even shorter. There's like 2-day courses. One of the girls in our program right now, she's from Australia, and it was like a 2-day training after she bought her Apples, and that was it. And that's, we're up against world standards being vastly different. but here in the States, we're also up against like states being vastly different. I can't imagine, especially because like 17-year-old Stephanie was like in the treatment room crying when my mom left me in there, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep doing it. Like I had no chill. I probably still have very little chill, but like I have more chill than I did at 17. And I would definitely say that it took me that first year. Everything was so new. The first 5 years, there's still a lot of great questions. The first 10 years of your practice, you found your niche, you found your groove, you found a lot of the things that could go great and wrong in sessions. But it's like, it's going to be so different, especially depending on how much patients you're working on.
Right.
You know, if you're seeing one person every, month, then you're going to be a much different electrologist than somebody that's seeing them, 5 to 7 a day. So,
yeah.
Well, okay. So one, I can't thank you enough for being here with me tonight. Otherwise, these zaplings would have to hear me ramble on at them. Next week, we're doing an early time again. So next week, 4:30, Kelly Morrissey's popping on, and we're going to grill her as well, because I just think it's really nice to be able to hear from other educators. And then Michaela, I might do that to you and Anita as well, since you guys are both educators as well. I'm just saying at some point, I'll properly prepare you for that time, FYI, when I ask you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I am so excited for your school. I'm so excited to see you guys' growth. We are cheering on your guys' development out there. And you got, when's your event coming up? You have
my event is Saturday, September 7th, and MAPE's event is Sunday, September 8th.
Okay.
Yeah. MAPE's,
everything's in person, right?
Everything's in person. Yeah. Yeah.
If you happen to be near Maryland and you're part of Mentorship Hour, when you watch this later, is it still okay to sign up for things?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So they have a workshop going at the school in Maryland. Where exactly in Maryland is the school?
It's in Laurel. Laurel is halfway between Baltimore and DC. We're right off 95. And the seminar on Sunday is in Columbia, it's actually where my office is. It's 15 minutes from here, from my house, and I live like 4 minutes from the school. So it's very close. We're right off 95.
Okay. So East Coasters, or people who like to fly on a last minute, definitely contact her. Where could they purchase tickets for that?
Either on my school's website or the MAPE website.
All right. Well, everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later on.